held 6 different belts. The only team to win all 3 major belts. The Crockett Cup. This man's a legend in his
How am I not going to like this guy, right? He knows everything.
Now, I want to ask you one question.
Welcome to another edition of Hero Television. I'm your host, P.L. Myers, along with co-host, the one, the only John G.
Thank God there's only one.
Yes, there's only one. But more importantly, we are here with someone that I've known for, let's say, I don't know, almost 20 years. Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
David Vox Mullen. And first of all, thank you for letting us come talk to you. Because
Thanks for coming out, man. I'm looking forward to it.
You're multimedia, multi-talent. For you people out there, when you watched HeroTV or Wrestling Resource Television also too, this is the man's music that you hear. It's like 20 years later, it's like, I hear that same riff all the time. And it's not the drums, it's his music.
Imagine how I feel.
Yes, I know. It's like, where's the payday? Where's the money? But for the fans out there that know you from music, from lead singer of Slipstream to the leader of the empire of the DVM podcast empire, and now world renowned here with the Comedy Shrine here in Aurora, who doing stand-up and improv. Yeah. I mean, what don't you do?
I haven't done bar mitzvahs yet,
Okay.
but no, there's not much I won't do really. I'll if somebody's gonna pay me, I'll do it. That's what's
all about the money.
I'm thinking about running for president soon.
There you go.
We'll see if that goes. No, I'm just kidding.
You got my vote.
There you go.
Got my vote too. Because if you're not, he won't start airing our shows anymore. So
Exactly.
we have to keep you happy, the talent happy. But going back to the beginning, for people, seeing how successful you are, when you were growing up and going to school, did you know you wanted to be in entertainment? Because it's hard to define you by saying music, comedy, podcasts. But as you said earlier, it's now entertainment, the brand. Did you know back in school you wanted to go down this route?
I knew when I was a kid that I was destined for something. I knew when I was young, I wanted to be a musician. I had musical talents. My family was very musical. I grew up around music, rock music. My mom was a singer. My father was a drummer. My grandmother played piano. My uncle played trombone in the high school band. Like, music was always around. My other uncle played piano. It was just, music was always around. And it was a language for us. So we communicated that way. And so a lot of what I did musically was an expression, and I just felt, I could do this for the rest of my life. It would be great if I could be, like everybody has dreams. I wanted to, at the time in the 80s, I wanted to be Michael Jackson, or I wanted to be, the next big thing. In the 90s, I think I wanted to be Bono. It's just that's kind of what worked for me. And so from the late 90s, right out of high school into college age, I formed a band, Slipstream, and we played out for 10 years. We played all over the U.S. and just we had some, a modicum of success. We had 3 albums, and we were on TV, and we got radio play, and it was all the benchmarks that an indie band wants to hit. We hit them, and it was great. And then when we decided it was time to kind of put that to bed, I was like, well, what do I do now? And so I started trying other things, and that's where the podcasting and the comedy came from and all that.
Because you have so many different vast, things that you enjoy. When you're growing up, who were your heroes that you looked up to?
I was a big Bono fan. I loved U2. That may or may not be as cool or sexy to say now, but when in high school, they were huge when I was in high school. The Zoo TV tour and Achtung Baby and all that, and it's just I loved everything that they were putting down at the time. They were my Beatles, so to speak. And so I loved that. Other heroes, ironically, all the while being a musician, I loved comedy. I was a big Robin Williams fan. I was a big Steve Martin fan. I liked Bill Cosby. That's not so hot now, but Eddie Murphy. So many comedians I grew up watching, and I loved them. I think it's really interesting that I'd always been comically driven. I've always been sarcastic or fun. I would do voices and impressions and stuff like that just to make my friends laugh and my family laugh. Never thinking, I could get paid to do that for real, But yeah, my heroes were just the people who were entertaining. I loved Frank Sinatra. I loved the Rat Pack. I loved. I love people who were in show business, if that makes any sense.
And with nowadays, it's so tough sometimes to get, parents to support, chase your dreams. Everyone tells you on TV, go chase your dreams, you can be anything you want. But sometimes, the parents are kind of that, like, reality check, like, wait a second, you aren't this, you aren't that. But it seems like your parents were the opposite. They were supportive.
Yeah, my mom was a single mom for a lot of years, and, I don't know if it was the right thing or not, but she definitely, I think because she was a musician and she had those goals and aspirations, and then she got pregnant and had me, and that had to take a back seat. So I think she understood this is, she could maybe live vicariously through me, so she always supported me. Realistically, like she, the old saying, you got to have a fallback. I hated that, but she would instill that, like, hey, you can do this stuff, but make sure your bills are paid, make sure your car payment is in, make sure make sure you're working first, and then do that. And that's something that stayed with me throughout my whole life. It's even when I was touring with Slipstream, I had a full-time job, so you always had a full-time job, you always had real income coming in. The trick is to find a way to get the stuff you love to do to pay you enough to to supersede your daily, job. And that's almost where I'm at right now. So, yeah.
Now, you are certainly knowledgeable about podcasts.
Yes.
So let's pick your brains for a few minutes on podcasting. What makes a really good podcast? Because there's thousands of them out there. So what makes a really good one?
Me. If I'm on it. No, I'm just kidding. No,
besides you.
I think I would have to go back to why I started podcasting. Podcasting was somewhat new in 2005, 6, 7 era, and I started listening to a TV-themed podcast at the time for the show Lost. And so I would listen to it, and quickly the producer brain went, oh, well, this is just spoken word, like Henry Rollins, or, I was like, oh, I get what they're doing. And then I listened to their shows, and they'd have little segmenty type things, and I'm thinking, wow, if I were to record this, if I were to produce this, I would change this part here, or I'd put music there, or I'd edit it right here, and then polish it up a bit, just to kind of give it a, in the business we call it like a polyurethane coat, so to speak. And so I would argue that content is number one. I mean, you got to have something that is interesting, that people want to listen to, that they're willing to invest 5, 15, half an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours worth to sit and listen to, let alone subscribe. But once you have an interesting subject, then it's how are you presenting it? How are you editing the material? How are you making it available to the public? And is it entertaining? Is it educational? Does somebody go away from it going, wow, I know something I did not know beforehand? That's what I look for when I listen to podcasts, and I listen to all different types. I always want to see if, is this something that I've never heard before? Am I learning something? Am I, getting knowledge from it? That's what I argue is a good podcast. It could all be BS too. I mean, whatever, I don't know, but that's what I look for.
And do you think there's certain, obviously, do you think there's certain guidelines, like it should be once a week, it should be regular at this time, it should be 30 minutes, 60 minutes?
I would say that there's varying schools of thought on that. I'm a big advocate for regular content. If you can do once a week, that's the best, let alone every day. But if you could do once a week, anywhere from, 10 to 15 minutes all the way to an hour or so, what you do is you create appointment subscriptions, where one of the things I was finding was happening with me, and I knew other people would behave the same way, is I was looking forward to Wednesdays when this particular show I was listening to would drop. And so I was like, oh, it's Wednesday, I get to listen to these guys talk about my favorite show. And so it became, and if they didn't release on a Wednesday, I was pissed, And I realized that, it's people get into a routine, they get into a habit. A lot of people listen to podcasts in their cars. I love the podcasts that are 10, 15, 20 minutes, because it's like, hey, you can listen to it your drive time. I mean, the average drive time is anywhere from 20 minutes to maybe an hour, depending on if you're in a more metropolitan area or not. But yeah, just a regular release, I think, is the key. I'm guilty of producing shows that do an episode and then like a couple of weeks go by, then another episode. Yeah, that does happen. But I also have the opposite end of that spectrum too, where we've got productions on our network right now that will record 10 episodes altogether, and then much like a Netflix or Hulu, they dump them all, so that way you have the whole season of a particular original piece. And that seems to be a lot of fun too. But then there's that long wait between. But like I said, there's just varying schools of thought on what it should be. Everybody's tastes are different. But if you can definitely get in a regular rotation where you're constantly releasing content, that's the key.
Well, speaking of taste, not necessarily naming specific ones unless you want to. What would a David Vox Mullen listen to? What is your go-to?
Ironically, I'm a big fan right now. I'm listening to The Way I Heard It, which is Mike Rowe's show, and it's only about 10 minutes long each episode, and he releases them every couple days. But I love the way he orates. I think he's got a cool voice, and I really enjoy his whole program is based on introducing you to predominantly an American historical figure, but it could be anybody in the world, who they tell you about their life, and then he reveals who it was, and it's like, oh, that's Hulk Hogan, or oh wow, that's Donald Trump, or like you had no idea. And so I love stuff like that because again, it's educational. I really loved Serial when it was out. That was a real big popular one everybody was listening to. That really hooked me in, and then I like the popcorn stuff. I like Mark Maron. I like listening to other entertainers sit down for a long form interview where it's not scripted and they can really talk about how they started and what they do, and that helps me as an entertainer is to know, okay, well, Steve Martin behaved this way, or Donald Glover behaved this way, or that sort of thing. So those are the things that really impress me.
Is it tough sometimes with the comedy end of it? Because the comedy business has changed so much. Just in the last, knowing you, 20 years. I'll use Bob J as the example. Bob J, very talented guy. Almost 1,000 different voices he can do. Man, woman, anything. Mm-hmm. And he felt like, oh, I'm on the cusp of something. But boy, if I was born 5 years later, I could have been on those things on Comedy Central or HBO or things like this. And comedy is kind of involved. Like you got to be there at the moment. Is it tougher now, you seem, when you started till now?
I'm kind of I don't know if we can use rough language, but I'm kind of a hard ass with that mentality and say that's not a good excuse. Okay. It's you've got to. There's no reason why you can't do it now. I'm 40. I'm 40 years old, and I'm not working regularly on TV every week, but it doesn't stop me. To think that it would is, I think, folly. And I admittedly, I know a lot of really wonderfully talented stand-ups and improvisers and comedians and actors who feel like, oh, I'm too old to get started in this. It's, no, there's plenty of people who regularly who didn't even start until they were 40 or 50 years old. I mean, so to say that I was born too late or too early, I mean, I get that, I understand that, but to let that be a reason to stop is not enough. It's you got to get up and you got to go. You got to do it.
Do you see the popularity going up or down? Because I know just in the last while, comedy clubs have been dying out, and because it's all other things to do. Where have you seen the rise go?
No, and keep in mind, I've only been performing comedy for about 6-7 years now. I've been a performer for over 20 years, but I would say, but I was a fan of comedy. So I had watched the great, comedy boom from the 80s and 90s, and then the decline. I would argue that we're actually seeing the start of a new boom. Whether or not people agree with me with that, I don't care. But I feel like we're starting to see a bit of a boom. The presence of social media has allowed comedians to get their material out there in a way that was not easily accessible before. So now I think what it's doing is it's allowing anybody who has a funny piece that they want to present the opportunity to do so. And while there is a lot more saturation, it also allows the really talented cream of the crop rise, if that makes any sense. So.
And also too, when you got into comedy, you know, you see it one way, but what was the biggest change that you saw when you actually had to start performing? Because you know, it's one thing to watch it, but actually to now start being that improv, because it's not just you do comedy, you also do improv.
Yeah. Well, ironically, the biggest joke is that improv is, once you learn the core tenets of improv, which is to literally just say yes to pretty much anything. I mean, there's a lot more rules that we put onto it, but the core basic is just be agreeable. Just kind of, I know it's scary, I know you've got nothing. And that's everybody's biggest fear, right? I mean, I don't care who you are, entertainer or not, to be a public speaker or to be a presenter, to get up there and not know what you're going to say in front of a room full of people is terrifying. What improv teaches is how to not necessarily not be afraid, but learn how, in a weird, warped way, learn how to enjoy that fear and understand that the fear itself really doesn't hurt you. It doesn't do anything to you. And I've had performances where I've gotten up on stage with nothing, realize I've got nothing, and there's a room full of people looking at me, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, this is bad, isn't it? You know. But then it's just kind of like, hey, you know, I'm enjoying how bad this is. You know, it's one of those things. So that's improv. And then once you've gotten over that hurdle, you'll find that it's a lot easier to just kind of go with the flow and do things as it comes. That's great. Stand-up is a whole different animal. Stand-up is you are working on set material that is either going to work or it's not. With improv, if something's not working, you can turn left and do other stuff. With stand-up, if you've only got 5 minutes worth of material and they laughed in the first minute and they didn't laugh in minute 2 or 3 or 4, what do you walk away? Do you finish that minute? Like, what do you do? So it's a different beast. It's nothing but intimidating, but that's the beauty of the work that we do. And you know, there's people out there who are never going to get up and do it. They're just not. And that's why they enjoy it. They watch it and go, well, I can't do that, or I'm afraid to do that, or I won't do that, or I'm not going to do that. We're the ones who go, okay, well, then we will. And that's what I love about it.
Who are some of your comedy influences?
I have such a weird sense of humor. I'm a big fan of, you know, ironically, there's a thing in the industry, and I don't agree with it at all, but there's a thing that women in comedy are not funny, and I don't agree with that in the slightest, and it makes me angry because the majority of the comics that I do enjoy happen to be women. You know, I'm a big fan of Eliza Schlesinger. I do like Amy Schumer. I know she's got a lot of heat. I was actually a big fan of Kathy Griffin too. You know, local girl. I mean, she got some heat with the head Trump thing, but she seems to be doing okay again now. So I think I just saw that she was playing Radio City in New York, so she's doing fine. I like edgy comedy. I like it where you go to a place where you're just not really expecting it to go. I like Anthony Jeselnik. His style is very weird. I know a lot of friends who are comics who don't like his style, and that's fine. I think the beauty of comedy is it's really derived from free speech. And the whole idea is, if you don't like it, don't listen. You know, if you do like it, support it, great. If you don't listen to it. But everybody is entitled to their own desires, and I enjoy a wide range of different things. I'm a big fan of Hannibal Buress. I love a lot of, ironically, I love a lot of Chicago-based comedy. I think that there's something about, I mean, maybe it's just because I'm also a Midwesterner, so I relate to it. But I do love a lot of Chicago-based comics. I'm also a big fan of Brian Scalaro, who's a New Yorker. We're actually, he and I are going to be doing some work together in, I want to say, September. So I'm really looking forward to being able to work with him. Things like that. Just, you know, if you don't know, he's the guy on the Snapple commercial right now. He's the papaya or whatever on the left.
It's a good role.
Yeah.
You brought up Kathy Griffin. You brought up you like edgy comedy. You brought up that about free speech.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the PC society now is too sensitive. How is that affecting comedy?
There's a lot of schools of thought on comedy and what the role of a comedian should be, and there's a lot of thinking of a comedian's responsibility is to shine the light on the atrocities of humanity, and I would definitely say yes, that is true. But at the same time, there's also a part of me that says sometimes it's just about goofing off. You know, sometimes it's Jerry Lewis. Sometimes it's the Marx Brothers or the Three Stooges. You know, I think there's a time and place for everything. I really do. I think that if it's a comedy's position to get you to at least think, whether you're thinking about, you know, pro wrestling, or if you're thinking about politics, or if you're thinking about religion or whatever. If it gets you to think, honestly, at the end of the day, my whole position is, if I can get you to forget the world, if you're coming here to be entertained, my job is to make sure that you can come in here and go, oh, my brain doesn't hurt so much right now, you know? And if I can make you laugh, it's even that much better. And that's what I'm going for.
And aside from the average, you know, I want this show to be successful, I certainly want to make money, do you have any specific comedy goals that you have set for the future?
That's a really good question. So when I was doing music, and I know that I've talked about this before, when I was doing the music, I was spending so much time chasing the next level, chasing the, you know, getting on the radio, getting on television, getting, you know, this big event at this particular famous venue, or we're getting this many people to buy tickets, or yes, those are all things that you do when you're in entertainment. You're trying to reach these certain goals. The problem one is, when I was doing that, I wasn't enjoying myself. You know, I'd get on the radio and it was so fleeting. It was like, oh, now I got to worry about getting to the next thing. And I didn't enjoy that, hey, my music is on the radio for millions of people to listen to, at a time when it wasn't easily available. The internet wasn't what it was back then. And then, you know, then getting on television, and I'm on international debut. I'm on television across the world, and did not enjoy it because I was worrying about, okay, we got this next big thing, I got to work on this record deal or that, and it was so disappointing when I looked back when it was done, and I thought, man, you know, I really should have enjoyed myself a little more. So I promised myself, as I got into this comedy world, I would just enjoy everything. So honestly, I've been on TV as a comedian, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. And I just, much like improv, I just say yes to every opportunity that kind of comes in, within reason. I mean, if it's, you know, can you do 10 hours and not get paid? Maybe not. But for the most part, when somebody comes to me with an opportunity, yes, absolutely, I'll give it a shot. Just to have the experience. And I've done so much more in comedy in just these, you know, 6-7 years than I did in over a decade of music, and that hurts a little, but I'm okay with it because I'm having a blast. I am loving what I do, so that's all that matters to me.
Well, I'm glad he said yes to us, and you've been watching David Vox Mullen, and we'll be right back with more of Hero Television.
Hi, this is Kevin Matthews, and you're watching HeroTV.
Welcome back to Hero Television. I'm your host, P.L. Myers, along with co-host John G., and we're here with David Vox Mullen, or as I like to call him, Vox. And we're here at the Comedy Shrine here in Aurora, where he performs improv, stand-up, you name it. You're the quintessential entertainer that I've known over that much years that has done so much.
Yeah.
But for you, because we also know you do voices.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm a big fan of the voices, knowing friend Bob J., seeing what you do. How do you, as a comedian slash improv person, entertainer, how do you choose which voice you do? Because everyone thinks they can do one voice, and they can do it okay, but it sometimes matters more. How do you come up with the voices you choose?
Well, a lot of times I find that I can do impressions based on the necessity of needing to do them in a scene quickly. You know, recently I was in a scene and they were doing a Han Solo thing and they needed a Lando, and I've never done Billy D. Williams before, but I came out and I was like, baby, you look like you could use some water. You know, and I never tried it before, but I came out on stage and did it, and the crowd exploded, and I was like, hey, I guess I can do Billy D. Williams now, so that's good. Yeah, and then same thing, I did, we play an improv game called Debate here at the Comedy Shrine, usually around election season. Before Trump got involved, I was doing like a George Bush kind of guy. Because my Obama's not very good. I almost did it. I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to let it go. But I'll let it go. But I always felt like Obama was like somebody's dad, like yelling at you like, all right, I told you to clean your room. You didn't do it. Now you're grounded. That's something about Obama that always felt like a dad to me. But we started doing Trump, and my God, I don't care if you like him, if you don't like him, if you don't care about him. The man is comedy gold. He's comedy gold. And so, we would do these debate games, and I would come out, and I just start, the lips come out, and okay, and all of a sudden, it's like it just happens, okay? And it's probably the best thing that's ever happened in all of the world of comedy, okay? And let me tell you, Alec Baldwin, he's sad, terribly sad, okay? I'm arguably the best Trump impersonator there's ever been. No, and just, again, the crowd response is usually your indicator, like, is that working, is that not working? And to be able to have that instant feedback is yes, this works, no, that doesn't work. And so that's what happens. And so I just keep doing these voices, and they keep coming up, and I watch a lot of news and television and pop culture, which keeps me somewhat relevant, so I know what people are thinking of or what's on their minds, and that's kind of how it goes.
What's your favorite one to do?
Well, I'll say that Trump is what's getting me the most paid. And let's be honest, money's great. But I don't know. I like so many of them. I just do them, and being an improviser specifically is just being playful. I'll be home alone, and I'll just start, baby, come outside, You just do these voices, I'll go walk the dog, and as Harrison Ford, I'll be like, crap, whatever. But it's just, not all of them are great. But I had to put some of them away. I used to do Bill Cosby. I used to do like Kevin Spacey. And he was like, these are not good impressions anymore. Nobody wants to hear those right now. So
you could do from the jail.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, we'll have like De Niro.
What are they doing now?
Right, we'll have De Niro be the warden. Like, what are you doing? You're in trouble, yo. Just little stuff like that.
So you go Trump and De Niro going back and forth. That'd be kind of.
Actually, that's a really good idea. I think I'm gonna write that one down for next week. Yeah.
All I can say is, Vox, thank you for letting us come out here. I'm glad we were able to catch up. For the viewers out there that want to come and find out about the podcast, find out about the entertainment that you do, let them know.
Well, sure. Well, the podcast network is called the DVM Production Empire. You can go to dvmpe.com. Anything else about me, generally, you can just go to my website, David Vox Mullen, DavidVoxMullen.com. And everything I am is David Vox Mullen. So Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, David Vox Mullen. I'd love to, have you follow, and if I make a joke that you like it and share it. And loves, not likes, is what I'm into. So.
Well, we love you.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that. So on behalf of myself and John, thank you for coming on Hero TV, and anytime you want to come back on, you're more than welcome. And you have been watching Hero Television. I've been your host, P.L. Myers, along with John G. and our guest this month, David Vox Mullen. We'll see you next month here on Hero TV.